Suit for Hire promises strategic gunplay mixed with intense martial arts, but does this John Wick-inspired action shooter hit the mark? Hi, I'm Dove, and I love indie video games. Today, we're going to break down Godmode Interactive's new indie title, Suit for Hire.
I'm thinking I'm back!
One thing that makes this game incredibly unique is that it feels like two games baked into one. The small indie studio out of Toronto nailed giving their gamers the freedom to make this game their own across the board. But I was personally amazed at how big a difference their attention to gameplay mechanics makes on a different camera angle. Yes, many games have multiple camera angles, and it can make things feel completely different. But Suit for Hire feels like a variation of Hotline Miami when you have a fixed camera angle on top. You can see through walls, around corners, and behind you, yet you're also given the option to play the standard action third-person camera. This feels like a gun-fu style of Sifu, albeit the combat doesn't have quite the Sifu level of technicality. But let me tell you how amazing it feels to get in the flow of a level. Nothing can match that adrenaline-fueled romp through some level filled with perfect dodges, Max Payne style slow motion moves, and being just a total unstoppable badass. Suit for Hire keeps that thrill going regardless of which camera you pick. And although the game feels like two distinctly different titles in one, you can go from one camera to the other without affecting your progress at all. Graphically, Suit for Hire goes for a realistic comic book style, and I think they hit that aesthetic really well. It keeps the frame rate consistent while you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, which is crucial in a fast-paced game like this. It's always a shock to the senses to have your parry or dodges thrown off because the system can't keep up with all the enemies it wants to render. Luckily, Suit for Hire keeps that frame rate where it needs to be. It should be noted the game ran very smoothly outside of a couple first-day crashes that seem to be completely remedied by their latest patches. A class move by developer Godmode Interactive to make sure their full launch got continued support. Now, when it comes to the action, the game can feel almost simplistic at first, and if you're into top-down shooters like Hotline Miami, you're going to feel right at home with the button set. Suit for Hire adds a punch and kick mechanic to go along with your ranged and melee attack, and that's where switching to a third-person action camera might give you a different perspective on the exchanges, both literally and figuratively. From top down, it just looks like a few simple extra moves to add to the standard top-down fighting system. But with that different angle, you can see chaining together kicks, punches, along with your specials, make the enemies vulnerable to finishers. Along with that, a number of different strategies you might not have noticed made a difference when playing top-down now seem to be huge when you're playing that third-person action camera. As soon as you start engaging with the enemy, you'll find out how fast-paced this game really is, and pretty much how every move, including the camera angle, makes a huge difference. Those simple controls begin to form kick-ass combos quickly, and once you get into the flow of combat, it feels like a fast-paced sequence from the John Wick movies. To add to the satisfying gunplay, you can also control a Max Payne style slow motion effect. That meter for your slow motion fills up rather quickly, by the way, so use it as much as possible. You can also utilize a slowdown effect that marks multiple enemies and then fires a combo shot accordingly. It seems like they pretty much ripped it right out of the code of Red Dead Redemption. The gunplay, in addition with the hand-to-hand moves, keeps things simple, but when everything comes together, Suit for Hire becomes something enjoyable for gamers of all types. You can focus on close quarters brawling and lean towards picking up extra bats or swords, or you can focus on the gun-fu and pick up every extra sidearm, shotgun, and assault rifle you can find. Suit for Hire allows for so much variation in how you approach each confrontation. Amazingly, you don't have to ever holster your weapons during a fight. You can freely aim, kick, and punch, all while driving the skirmish forward. It definitely keeps the flow smooth and gives you that ultimate action hero feeling, all while you have that handy slow motion effect sitting in your back pocket. The downfall with the controls comes when you're trying to platform in any capacity. It can be a little bit annoying, but ultimately there aren't too many sections where you have to platform more than one jump. In addition, you can't go any faster than the standard speed you see here. There is a sprint button, but that just puts you in this normal state. I think adding an actual faster sprint than this might break the combat balance, but not being able to go any faster makes some of these bigger levels feel like a slog if you have no idea where you're going. But neither those pesky little quirks nor a couple of random graphical bugs like some clipping or animations not lining up perfectly really detracted from the overall experience. Perhaps the biggest drawback for some is the absolute lack of any plot or narrative other than, shoot the bad guy. Again, probably not a deal breaker for most gamers looking for a fast-paced action shooter, but, something to note if you need that plot to drive you forward in a game, because this one is about that arcade-style mayhem. The enemies also start off as unthinkable handgun fodder who occasionally remember to throw up a block, but eventually you progress to more formidable opponents. In addition, the randomness of the opponents with varied weapon types, shields, or extra armor help keep you on your toes, so don't get lulled into any false sense of security. The music felt like it was nearly ripped out of an action movie, which is great. It kept everything flowing and made things extra intense during boss battles or areas with a giant influx of enemies. The sound effects help with the immersion as well, as the reloads and firing feel right on, along with all the hand-to-hand combat sound effects that you've come to know and love from all the action movies. The level design starts off a lot bigger, and with the lack of a true sprint button and fewer enemies, it can make those early levels feel almost tedious, especially after you get into the actual flow of combat. But the further you get, those levels become jam-packed with enemies seemingly behind every corner. You throw in a solid variety of scenes and layouts, and you have a title that keeps things feeling fresh. And it can't be understated how different things can feel when going from top-down to third-person. The more wide-open levels can cater a bit better to the third-person camera, as you can see what's going on down an alley or further away, and the top-down camera feels almost necessary in those cramped indoor levels with multiple rooms. But both are equally amazing when you pull off some insane combos. Level-wise, Suit for Hire is loaded. You'll take on contracts, which are comprised of about 7 chapters. Each chapter has multiple checkpoints within itself, and the contract ends with a boss fight. There are currently 7 contracts to play, and once you finish a chapter, you can go back and reselect it for a better score or to try it from a different camera angle. After you finish your first contract, you'll be able to upgrade your base gear. That pretty much entails being able to upgrade your firearm, which will either give you more firepower or a beneficial perk like fully reloading your weapon after a stealth kill. With the game's character creator, there's an ability to create your very own contract assassin, and along with those weapons upgrades, you'll be able to unlock additional suits and accessories as well. Once you complete your first contract and you get that upgrade, the game really opens up. The multiple difficulty settings now have modifiers like harder enemies, making the challenge incline steeper and steeper. And as I mentioned, you can now go back to each individual completed chapter and fully explore the map or try a different strategy. Along with the chapter scores, this could give perfectionist-style gamers a lot of replayability. Ultimately, this is a beautiful indie gem that allows gamers so much variation in how they want a game to look, how they want to progress, and how they want to customize their experience to make it their own. This is a game that would not have been made by a AAA studio. Some corporate jackass would not allow a development team to make a game with this many options for the gamers in mind. And that right there is why indie games are so much better, because they're made by gamers for gamers. Suit for Hire is an absolute recommend from me. Obviously, fans of the Hotline Miami series, or if you love the gunplay from the old Max Payne games, you'll enjoy this. But I think anyone looking to fill that good old-fashioned power fantasy will likely enjoy Suit for Hire. Before any sales on, Suit for Hire is $15, which is an absolute steal. So, if you're interested, look for Suit for Hire, available on Steam.
Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button. And subscribing goes a long way towards bringing you more content like this. We also have a weekly news podcast called the Indie Radar, where we focus on indie news and upcoming titles. Thanks again for watching from all of us here at The Gamer Buff.